Broadcast live.
It's amazing how little people realize how much jazz affected modern life. Before Louis Armstrong and King Oliver and Jelly Roll Morton and all those guys came on the scene, people used to dress shitty. They couldn't dress. You know, it was just, these people came out of slavery, and I think when they looked at it, they said, shit, we ain't gonna dress like that. You know? So, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen those pictures from the early 1900s when they came out. Damn, they dressed. And not only did they dress, but they set the standard for dressing in the world. You know, and by the 1930s, 1940s, everybody wanted to be an African American all over the world. And of course, it became worse because, I mean, everybody today, hey, man, hey, what you say? But I always say that if it wasn't for Louis Armstrong and those people, we probably would still be wearing white powdered wigs and those buckled shoes that George Washington used to wear. But Louis Armstrong and them came on the scene and they go, shit, man, you got yourself some hip threads, you know. And
really cool stuff.
But they not only changed the way people dressed, they changed the way people walked, they changed the way people talked, they changed the way people danced, they changed the way people sang, and if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be Mr. Cotini.
I mean, fashion sort of is like a love-hate relationship. Growing up, we never really had a lot, and because my parents worked very hard, they were able to take me to some like pretty good schools and take me to some pretty good journeys, and that's when I started hating fashion. Because you start looking at the other kids. I went to an American school. I lived in Austria for a while. I went to an American school. And coming from South Africa to an American school in the middle of Austria and Vienna, you see kids wearing Timberland boots and, you know, Tommy Hilfiger denims and, you know, Ralph Lauren shirts. It was a complete, like, it really fucked my head up because it was like, how the hell is my mom gonna ever afford a Tommy Hilfiger or Timberland or anything like that? In South Africa, there was no piece of clothing that I ever felt like I needed, you know, at an early age. There was nothing I ever felt like I needed to fit in. And as soon as I got there, it was like there was a certain way that people walk. The cool kids walk like this. There was a skater kids dressed like this. There were punk kids. There were all these different sub-genres, you know? So that really messed me up, like, and that really, like, was like, since that day, I always told myself that I'd try my best to always like have the best, you know, like have the best like threads and to stand out. Because like I was wearing like it was like when I went in '97 and I was wearing like a South African soccer jersey. At that time, it wasn't the best colors. Imagine the colors of the SA soccer jersey, and people walk around with Ralph Lauren shirts. And it really made me feel a bit down, you know. But I promised myself, like from that day, that I would try like stand out, you know, as much as possible. But I didn't really, it's like stayed in my head. It's like my configuring now. It's like I do it, like try to do everything to stand out. And that's like my love for sneakers sort of developed from that. Like I would try to collect as many sneakers as possible just so I could be cool, you know.
Yeah.
You know. Just so I could be cool. And then that sort of became my culture, because like the deeper you get into it, you start realizing like where fashion influences come from, you know, and you start going deeper into it. And like for me, it's like fashion is more therapeutic. Like I can sit online just looking at clothes and looking at different things. It's like a therapy for me. It's like something I don't know that I'm still trying to figure out. You know, it's like when I first started making beats, fashion is the same thing for me. That's why I can like wear different things and, try this and try that, and wear skirts and wear a duke and this. It doesn't matter for me because it's really just like exploration of like feelings. You know what I'm saying? That's how I really look at it for me.
When I grew up, I didn't know at first about fashion. I mean, I didn't care, all I cared about was music. And then when I got to boarding school, my best friend is one of our best trumpeters even now, and he's 5 years older than me. His name is Stompy Manana. And Stompy Manana's one brother was the lead saxophone player for the Savoys out of Sophiatown. And his other brother was Chief Manana, was a bass player for the Harlem Swingsters. And his brothers were real dressers. So he wore the hand-me-downs, and he had jerseys with maybe like done here and there. But it was cashmere. We call it cashmere. So cashmere side. And I didn't know what cashmere is. And he knew music, he knew everything. And I wanted to hang out with him. He was him and Monty Mahove, and that whole when they were dressed, they'd walk a certain way, and then their shoes looked up. They call it mabegas, mabega pesu, And so I wanted to be especially Stompy's friend because he knew so much. And that he made me fail Form 2. And they asked him not to come back. But he could really dress. So one day, he said to me, just said, Sonny, I can see that you like me, you like us. And I like you, but I can't hang with you. I said, why? He said, because you wear John Drakes. Those school shoes, John Drake. Yeah. Says, and he said it in Sotisar, I can never love Mojo. John Drakes. No. I don't want to be seen with you. And I said, what should I do? And I was always willing to change my life for friends. Like I went to smoke and drink, right? And so I said, what you should? He said, you have to get a St. Louis. And a St. Louis is a brogue shoe, but it's looking up like that. It was £4, 17 and 6. And in those days, that was a fortune. My father tried his best, but he used to give me £1 a month. So every month I'd take 7 and 6 and put it on the shoes. And the day I took out that Louis shoe was my birth. Everybody was Hugh as I said Louis Haku. But like the Chaya, I said Louis. And then from there I got into but there was a culture of dressers, and people were known for dressing, like Luki and Selenki and all those guys. They were really, so like you would sometimes like try to find out where they hang out at the movies or what. So, but over the years, I became an expert. And when you become an expert is when like, tough guys stop you in the streets. Sonny, come here. And he comes and says, what is DJ? What is the And they want to see the label. And Tracate the school, you have to take out the shoe. And they'd look at the shoe and say, Madlala, cake the school, man. Cake the school. They were so passionate about clothes. And I got carried away in that now I can't wear any kind of wool but cashmere. And my coat, by the way, is also cashmere.
Nice.
Well, I think that, I won't say we were brainwashed. I think we're really done in. Because as we grew up through the generations, we got to a point where we got convinced that our heritage was primitive and backward, barbaric and savage, heathen and pagan, and words like that. And so today you actually have homes, especially urban homes, where the children are not allowed to speak vernacular, the mother tongue. And it's nothing as heartbreaking as that, because when I left South Africa, I only spoke English to the teachers, to people of European origin, to Indians, and coloreds, because they didn't speak English, you know. I mean, they didn't speak Xhosa or Zulu or Sotho or any of those languages. And I loved languages and praise poetry, because I also grew up, it was very compulsory for us during the holidays to go to our relative. In those days, Africans still had land. I had an uncle who had a farm. I had an aunt who had a farm, and a grandfather who had a farm. So we had to go and learn how to milk, how to herd animals, animal husbandry, farming, how to grow things. Those things just came naturally, but with me they stuck. I don't know if you've noticed, but most of the artists who are recognized internationally out of Africa, most of them are heritage artists. You know, artists are heritage oriented, and I think that they are very fortunate, because outside of like Black Mambazo and Miriam Makeba, you know, the artists who came from the other countries really were very close to their heritage, and to a great extent introduced Africa to the world, starting with Miriam Makeba. One of the things that made Miriam Makeba great that people didn't know was that her grandmother was a traditional healer, her mother was a traditional healer, and she was automatically a Sangoma, traditional healer. And she had a repertoire of hundreds of songs. And I think that people still have grandparents, or they have relations who can speak the languages, but like we avoid the aged today. You know, we live in a world where you don't see the aged. You know, we have them hidden in the backyard. And today's aged are the last generation who have information on our past, you know, for generations. And if we don't suck that from them, our children or our grandchildren, when they ask them 20 years from now who they are, they're going to say, they say we used to be Africans long ago. We will be the first society in human history to actually abandon heritage if we don't do something about it. So it is very, 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 very important that we think about that, because we actually, it's not only in South Africa, it's in every African community. Well, every African community outside Africa, it's long forgotten. They don't know about their history, but we're the only people who don't know our history. But it's there. And today you have like Google and Facebook. I mean, the information, historical information is there. So I think that we have to go into an era, especially young adults, I try to like encourage, to say if there's anything you should try and do is let your children spend as much time as possible with your indigenous relatives, so they can know that side of their lives, because otherwise they're walking around without any, I mean, they have all this information and all this great history, but nobody is encouraging it. And that's why I started this Heritage Foundation, to try and bring back the teaching of languages, the learning of like praise poetry, genealogy. Because, you know, in Europe, you can just go to a center and press your surname, and all your history comes out, 500 to 1,000 years. So we need to have those, because we have the information. So I don't think that because you're influenced by, heavily influenced by other cultures, that you should abandon your own heritage. I think that you should learn both as much as possible. I got recognition through my heritage I never got any attention when I tried to do things that were similar to American things. Most of the attention I got was from like the heritage-driven songs, and still is, you know. I mean, even in Japan, you must sing Stimera, Stimera. And they don't know what you're saying, but it hits them. You know, it hits them somewhere special. And one of the things that I enjoy about modern or contemporary hip hop is that they do use like vernacular language a lot, you know, and they play with it even. And that's some of the things we should learn, because half the time I'm saying, what are they saying?
It's a weird thing because, like, me being a rapper or hip hop musician, at the beginning it was almost like there was a stage where you had to sort of like, everyone was telling themselves we have to rap in English so people outside could understand what you're saying. That like happened for a long time. Then it was like, no, you can rap in whatever your language is here. If you're from Soweto, you must sound like you're from Soweto. If you're from Durban, you must sound like you're from Durban. But then almost like everyone who sort of went that route fully with just that mindset, like couldn't like travel outside of the immediate area, you know, out of South Africa. And now sort of people are sort of learning to blend and mix. So if you speak English, if you listen to my English is actually really good, you feel me? And then when I go to, then when you listen to some of my other tracks, you're like, maybe this guy doesn't speak English, you understand? But it's like you can be exactly who you are, put on a track, it doesn't matter anymore as much. And that will sort of allow people to travel everywhere. I mean, like a good example, like a Davido, who's just released 2 like fully African market songs, right? Mm-hmm. And those songs are doing better than any other African song with full-on proper English that people would really understand, you know? He's saying things that people don't understand, but because of the groove, people just want to catch a groove and catch a vibe of where you're from. So I think even South African artists are starting to get that, but I think with South African artists, the problem is that we really have a complex about like traveling. We really don't want to travel to a place where you might like, people might not understand what you're saying, or might not, but might not, sing along to your music straight away. But the people always feel the vibe. Like everywhere I go, I don't really do music stuff, but the friendships and the relationships that I'm able to like gather along the way, those people always come back to research what's going on to the music. And like a month later, they'll be like, wow, we should do this, we should do that, we should do this. But they always come back and research. So I think we also just have to be like greater explorers. Forget about the language and those barriers. Just be greater explorers. Yeah. And I think that comes with experience, you know? Because even with, with Uncle Hugh's journeys, the experience is even more priceless than just the music. I'll answer the question, but 2013 I did an interview with Slicker. It was 13, 14? And 2014, and I told him that all I want to do is to make one album. I'd struggled for seven years to make that album. No one would give me the opportunity, no one would make it happen. And somehow, by grace of God, we were able to make the album and for it to come out. That's all I ever wanted to do. I wanted to make my album, put it out, shoot a couple of music videos, go to some shows, get some money, buy some sneakers, that's it. That's all I ever wanted to do, And sort of everything that's happening now is almost like real blessings for me, I don't expect any of this to happen. I do try to work hard to keep it happening, but I don't expect any of this to happen. I never thought that I'd be sitting with Uncle Hugh talking about just, life. Forget the collaboration, just to sit here and talk about life and him to explain his stories. For me, it's something that it wasn't going to happen. I never expected to even, to be mentioned in the same breath. So to sort of have access to him and his brain, and not just in a conversation, from a musical standpoint also, that's like almost like a dream job for me, you know. And there's days I wake up and I don't feel like doing music. There's days where I feel like I might not be doing the thing I really want to do. There's days where I lose passion in it. And it's things like these that like keep me reminded that when you have, I call it a blessing because a lot of people know how to play instruments. A lot of people know how to rap. A lot of people know how to produce. But like there's a chosen few who are able to be pushed into that direction. And I'm being pushed into this direction. And it's like, it helps me, it helps my life, you know. Standard Bank didn't have to get me. There's other people they could have got that have bigger Twitter followings, that do bigger shows, that do bigger everything than me. But for me to be told, pushed towards this direction, it's really a blessing. And like, I couldn't thank Hugh enough also to allow me into his circle, you know. It's a real, real blessing. Really.
Wait till you get the bill. Well, if you look at my history, especially since I came to South Africa, most of my albums have had major collaborations, you know, across the board. When Kwaito was there, I had Kwaito music. I even did a track with Alaska. Because fortunately, I'm category free in my head. But Riky said a very important thing earlier on. I think you mentioned Davido. And this, to a certain extent, is related to what you said about keeping your heritage in front of you and like being influenced by other things. But the Nigerian musicians make unbelievable use of their tradition, but they put it inside this modern thing that they do, you know. And then, of course, they have Pidgin English, which already is spoken by everybody, English-speaking people in West Africa. But most of the world now, you know, they sabi Pidgin, small, or well. So, they fascinate me because the way that they mix it, you know, I think answers your question of the possibility, even their dances and their outfits and everything. But at the same time, they're blowing people away in Chicago and New York and, you know, all over the world. People want to collaborate with them because they've got that native smell, that indigenous smell. And I'll tell you, the indigenous smell is very attractive, the odor, to the world. Riky and I decided that we're going to get together, at least with the keyboard player, you know, and take the songs that we're going to choose and figure out how to work them, because it's something that hasn't been done, that we haven't done. We don't know what we're going to do, but when we get there, we'll find out. But we're certainly not going to tell you.
Broadcast live